Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we are going to take a look at the Coolermaster Qube 500, and that's Qube spelt with a Q. Although when you think about it, it does make sense spelling it that way. I know we're all used to the C, but anyway. So I have the Macaron version. I want to say Macaron version. I want to say macaroon, but there's not an extra O in there. But the Macaron version comes with interchangeable fronts and tops, and in the packet you get the sage pastel green, Tiffany green colour that I'm using here, but then you also get a peach, which we'll call it peach, and a pink as well. Now that's £100, but there is a plain white or a plain black version which you can save yourself £10 on, and that's £90. So there's a range of prices. Now it does come flat packed, and Coolermaster say by making it flat packed, it basically uses 45% less packaging. Now people will say, oh, if it uses 45% less packaging, then can that be mean that the case is 45% cheaper? Well, not quite. But what they do say is by sending it flat packed, because it needs to be assembled. By sending it that way, it means they make the individual panels that little bit stronger and have extra braces and a little bit thicker. So once you have built it, you technically get a sturdier case. Now there are lots of ways that you can build it. You can build it in different configurations. You can have it inverted, you can have it on its side. There's things that you can move around inside as well. But what I'm going to do, because it does come flat packed, is I'm going to show you an assembly video of me doing it in time lapse. It's only a few minutes long, so try and kind of get through it. And you'll also see the fact that at that point I decide that I'm going to use my own kit in there rather than using the normal case test kit. So keep your eyeballs peeled, and I will be back to do a full run around of the case in a normal review fashion once you've seen the build video. So it's at this point I really wish they hadn't sent the box with no packaging on it, but I get that, why. But when you first open it up, Lego pack! This is amazing. There's going to be another separate video of my other half building this. Don't be perfs. So everything comes in different layers. So effectively what I've done is I've just split it all down and I've sped it all up so that I can have all the pieces out of the box. But there is a little section at the back. I do get different colours in mine because I've got the Macaron version. But you can see how to build it there. But then there's another step that pops up where you can see all the different versions that you can build it out now. And that's really important. There's all my bits all spread out. It doesn't look like much there. But when you do get it, so this is also I've decided to go a little bit balls deep with it, and I'm chucking lots of new bits of hardware on that I have here so that I can use it. Now you are going to need to pay attention to the manual. The numbers on the manual don't seem to make too much sense with the big dark manuals, the big dark numbers. You have to kind of pay a little bit more attention, but you do actually need to put the hardware into the case as you build around it. So it's not a case of build the case, put the hardware in. It's easier, and it shows you in the manual to do it in stages like this. So motherboard in first, then the power supply. That's a white Coolermaster 850 watt gold power supply, by the way. Now I don't want to talk you through every single second of this, but the back panel goes on. When you are putting these screws on, if some don't line up, there's just a little bit of powder coat on the threads. So just give it a little bit of a manly push, you know, get in there and they should go in. I had a little bit of problem getting the graphics card screw in, as you can see here where I'm faffing, but it was just build up of powder coat. So I'd stay aware with that, but just try not to cross thread anything. So you can see, done the back, got the motherboard in, power supply in, back panel on. I've just put the cooler in and the memory in, because as I said, you kind of build around it. Putting the front panel on, now poking all the cables through. 4 screws I should say in the front again. And now you can kind of see it come together really, really fast here, because the bottom's on. Now it's time for the top. I do a little bit of cable routing while I'm thinking about it. that top goes on. Just 2 screws for the top, 2 screws for the bottom. It's really easy. You can see the dust filters there. I'm clipping the feet on. I will say here, when you see it, I've put the feet on the wrong way round. I later go round and I flick them back round and I change it. But there we have the rough case built. Probably took me about 15-20 minutes. I spent longer faffing trying to find the hardware to go in. I've decided to change the fans so that they all match, because it's a master fan white halo on the cooler, so I'm changing the ones in the case for that as well. What I've decided to do is put 2 in the bottom, so I've got 1 directly going up towards the graphics card and then 1 slightly further forward to help flow up towards the CPU cooler itself. Then what I do in a sec is I remove the standard rear fan and I put a new halo in the back and then 1 new halo in the roof. So we've got 4 fans in total that have gone in that match the CPU cooler fan, and things matching like that is just something that I personally prefer. I think you could get away with putting more fans in there, but I didn't want to throw just fans at it for the sake of it. I think for the spec that we've gone here, which is a 4060 Ti, there's a 13700 in there. Although the cooler, I'm going to need to do an undervolt on the i7 to keep the cooler happy, but I have got some upgrades planned in the future, which I'll talk to you about in another video. But we've got a dual tower version of that cooler that we can put in that I'm hoping to customize. Now I'm just doing a little bit of cable routing. There are cable tie down points everywhere on the back of this case, but also when you look carefully you can see that there are little 90-degree angles that poke out with little slits in. These are perfect to tie your cables down with, and you can, if you spend a little bit of time with your zip ties, you can actually make the back really tidy. And I did try my best within the time available, because I was quite short on time to get this done, but I did want to, you know, try and make it look as tidy as possible. I didn't want it to look particularly cluttered. And this is now fully built. This is the first power on, and Shazam. Now, I don't like the unicorn puke, but as you'll see in a minute, I've changed all of that, but that is first power on and the first look at the complete system. With the fully built, we always start with the main body of the review at the top and at the front. You can see that you've got USB-C, 2 USB-As, you've then got your combined headphone and microphone, and the power switch also has an activity light, stroke power light there, depending on where you plug it in on the inside. Now the tops are very easily removable because they've got little rubber grommets on them. So you pretty much just give them a pull and they will come off. What this does expose is the fact that you have offset radiator mounts in the top, technically in the front and the bottom as well, but you've got 120 mounts and 140 mounts. Now in the roof, depending on the configuration on the inside, you can get up to a 280mm radiator. So 120, 240, 280. 280 obviously is the 2 times 140mm fans fitted. Now the section at the back here, which you can see is like a handle, when you get the Macaron version you do get another handle in the box, and it does mean that you can move it around if you want. You can have these as feet, you can have these as handles. If you did want to move it to the front though, it's going to encroach on the I/O. But because of the fact that the case is customizable, technically you could spin the front panel round if you wanted, have the I/O on the bottom. There's loads of different ways. Play around with it, and I would implore you to play around with it as well, because there are lots and lots of cool ways that you can do it. You just need to have a think about, is it going to annoy you about being able to get to the USBs? Is it going to be fixed on your desk and you don't mind using the back? Is it going to be that you've got a USB hub so you don't need to worry about the ones on the front of the case? There's lots of things to consider, but as you can see for showing in the video, I have left it like this. When we get to the front, exact same layout, because it's very similar to the top panel. Technically you can move them around if you wanted as well. There's loads of ways that you can shift stuff around and play around with it, but it's the same fan layout in the front. You can see though that the power supply is in the front at the moment. If you did want to use the front panel, you can move the power supply into the bottom, but we'll cover that in more depth when we get inside the case itself. Round the back, 120mm mount only, although there is a large amount of movement, so you can move it right up or right down if needed. You can see that we've got a normal kind of standard layout for the back of the case, but one of the things I will say is there are no support tabs or anything in the middle of the I/O slots, and what that does mean is, and this is so simple, so beautifully simple that it's almost perfect, is if you wanted to do a vertical mount, you can fit this in, and then your graphics card just hangs in the middle and you can still have access to stuff. So there's no mess. Obviously you need a riser cable, but like I said, this is so beautifully simple. I actually implore Coolermaster to sell these separately, because if I'm honest, I want to have some of these for future builds and stuff that I'm going to be doing here. This is wonderful, and I will show you more again on the inside, because there is a few things that we need to chat about with the use of this on the inside with restrictions. Power connector here, there is a cable that goes through to where the power supply is, but if you have a look, there are tags here, so you can plug it in and then pull it down and zip tie it to keep it all nice and tidy. So that's something, a nice little detail there. On the bottom, I will show you the bottom quickly. I have the feet on, although you can put the feet on the side if you wanted and have it leant over. As I said, you can even build it inverted if you want, and the feet can be moved throughout. But there's a dust filter down here, very simple dust filter with magnets, but as you can see there is intake here if you wanted to use it. I have got 220mm fans here that I have fitted, as you would have seen in the video. I'll discuss about the fan that comes with it in a moment. I've got these set up as intake, but again you can have two 120s or two 140 fans in the bottom, or a radiator if you wanted. Now that is back on there. We lift this back up and then we spin around to the back of the case. The back of the case has dust filtering as well. Comes off very simply, same dust filter as the tops and the fronts, although the top one, if you've noticed, there isn't one in there, and that's because I've removed it because I've been playing with it. But anyway, that is the side panel. The power supply is hidden behind here, but this is a pump mount if you wanted to use it. It's crazy that they've actually thought about fitting this in here, but it would mean that you'd have to move the power supply and stuff. When we do talk about power supply in a minute, I've got some ideas with power supply that might be helpful to you. But anyway, you can see up here the main power cable coming in. Some large grommets at the top there. The fact that they haven't got the rubber sheaths over them, it would have been nice, but I think they've gone with the keep it simple kind of stupid attitude. Now, down the side here, you can see that there are tags there. So you can see I've used one and I haven't used one. Now those sections are to aid cable routing, but also give you something to be able to tie down your cables to. And it's very simple, adds strength, but is a really nice way of doing it. Now they have got the normal tag tie downs as well. I can see one there just hidden. So they have got the normal ones, but with those ones, because they're longer, it means that you can actually attach the cables and make them much straighter and nicer. And that's one of the reasons why I ran this section around. Now I do have the two fans in the top and the back. So one in the roof, one in the back, and then two in the bottom. But there you've got the normal fan cable and the RGB cable, and I've routed it around. As you can see here that we have the connectors. If I come back out here, you can see the connectors that I've got for the RGB, the two from the bottom up here as well as the normal cables that you would expect to have the system running. I've used this section in the corner to be able to hide my cables. You can put lots of hard drives in the back. I'll put the splash screen up for you. I will say though that if you're going to go full gaming rig with multiple 3.5-inch hard drives, it's going to get cluttered quick. It's not the biggest case in the world, so you're just going to have to think, you know, things out. I've done the best I can here with the components that I've got. Clip them all in as tidy as possible. I could probably spend a lot more time and make it even tidier, but this config wasn't planned and kind of evolved. But these tags that I showed you here, you've got them down the side of the motherboard up here. There are lots of places that you can put them. You can see you can have a hard drive, a hard drive, a hard drive. You can put hard drives on the inside. There's many lots of ways that you can configure it. If I pop the back on again, pop that on, then when we come round to the business side, white round the outside, just white framed, not tinted, tempered glass, very nice. As I did say to you, I've put fans in the bottom and then one in the back and one in the top. Now, the one in the back is not the standard case fan. This would have been. I removed it just so that all of my fans matched. But this is the only fan that comes with this case. And it is RGB, but like I said, I wanted mine to match. And the deciding factor in the end was putting this little cooler in, which I'm now scanning around desperately trying to see the box. But I don't think I have the box out here, or no, I am fibbing. Now I have this, I'm going to get it in and set up and running, but because I want to be using it myself, I actually have this. Now it's technically launched, but Coolermaster asked me not to review it because there wasn't any in the shops yet. Now I'm going to be fitting this as well later, so there's going to be an upgrade path for this, for the regulars. I don't know whether I'll do it on Facebook or whether I'll put it on YouTube as well. But we are going to be fitting this later and testing this in this case. But I've also got some little customization ideas coming through my head. So anyway, like I have said, there are mounts in the bottom that you can use. There's mounts in the front that you can use as well. I did say to you about vertical graphics cards. Vertical graphics card will go in, but you won't be able to run lower fans underneath it. There's just not room. The other side of it is with a vertical graphics card, it could get quite difficult with larger CPU coolers. This one, without the bottom fans, I would just about be able to get it in. For horizontal, they say that you can fit almost all 4090s in there. Now, I have tried a full length Strix in here. Now, when you watch the assembly video, it tells you to put the hardware in stages, including the graphics card. The graphics card was fitted in quite early. Now, technically, this Strix will not go in this case now. But if you were to pop the front off of the case, then it would fit, because you can get it in, clip it in, and it is ridiculously tight, but it will go in. So that's one of the good ways of it being dismantleable, or you build it up at the start, in that you can get slightly larger kit in there. It's going to be a pain to get it out later on, but it is only a few screws. One of the beauty of the cases with the screws is you don't have to drill any rivets out or anything like that. Now with the config I've gone for is 2 fans in, 2 fans out. Obviously the CPU is blowing towards the back, so I've got one here, and then just another fan in the roof to help aid airflow. The 2 in the bottom, I've got one between the 2 fans on the Asus card that I have in here. It's a 4060 Ti, and it's not a massive card. It's not it's not the greatest card or anything, but I liked the white. It was one that I had here, and for the uses that I'm going to give it, it will be fine for now. This is going to end up being an interim rig. The other fan here, I've kind of got this as like an airflow up to hopefully feed the CPU, and that's why I've done it in that way, is to try and aid the airflow. I think if you were to put a fan in the front here, the airflow is going to be more directed towards the graphics card. So I've gone with it that way to see. But I did say that I would give you some advice with the power supply. Now, the power supply can be moved down 3 slots so it can come down a bit lower. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can do. You can also put the power supply back here. Now, you can fit it in underneath this graphics card, but I think for anyone that's running a gaming spec graphics card, I think you're going to need to put the power supply in the front. If you want a bit more room though, SFX power supplies could be the answer to your prayers. They come in a range of wattages now, and Coolermaster themselves actually go up to, and I'm going to grab it, and this is an insight into stuff that I'm going to be doing in the future, they do go up to 1300 watts for a SFX power supply. This means it's much shorter up here. It's going to give you loads more room. It could give you more airflow. And it's also going to be a bit shorter over here as well, because they are significantly smaller. In fact, I'm going to get one out so I can show you how significantly smaller, because they are teeny tiny in comparison. So that would be where the SFX would go. The other side is, if you wanted to run it that way round so that it's pulling air in the front, that's fine. But the fans themselves aren't going to spin that much. You're never really going to have to worry too much about if you wanted it the other way around. And then you get the nicer view from the SFX. I've got this one this way around because I knew people would moan at me about it if I didn't. But there's a distinct possibility it may get flicked around for the permanent use. So SFX power supplies could, if you haven't got one or you have to buy new, it could be a really nice addition. Although I would say that if you end up with a white one, Coolermaster don't do a white power supply. But annoyingly, and just for inclusion, they're not going to like me for it, but Lanley do. So there are white SFX power supplies out there if you want. I've gone with the white Coolermaster one. Came with white cables as well. It fit in lovely. Now, I did say to you about the pump mounts. There's other ones down here as well. There are lots of ways that you can pass your cables through and stuff like that. So there's plenty of room and options for you to decide how you want to set your rig up. Obviously, you can flip it round if you want. You can have it laid on its side. But I have just done this. Now, if you did want to put an AIO in the roof, there is enough room above the motherboard to be able to fit an AIO and the fans, and it will still clear the motherboard. So you can get a normal 240 or a normal 280 in the roof if you wanted that extra bit of cooling, and you're not going to have to worry. So that's something you can keep in mind as well. Also, it does come with a very funky add-on for the side to be able to fit radiators. Now, it's hinged and it can go around and you put the screw there. There's ample room for a 30mm thick radiator and a set of fans, and still be able to clear the power supply. But if the power supply side of things bothered you, then you can still do that, but then you might run into issues with your cables here. But the other side of this, oh, flipping heck, Tom. I do apologise. So, radiator mount can go up here. And there's ample room for you to get a normal 30mm thick radiator and a set of fans in there. But then, obviously, at that point, you are quite close to the power supply. But you can move it down as well. And there's just a little screw at the end, and that could mean that you could put 3 240 or 3 280 radiators in this. But obviously, if you're doing that, it means you're full water cooled. I don't think you're going to be able to get away with a hard line if you're using this because of the amount of movement. But the only complex side of this is then you need to take the side panel off this side, and you're going to need to use to run it on this side so that you have the airflow. It does then also mean that you have a glass panel on the back. Now, I'm hoping that Coolermaster are going to sell extra vented panels for those of you out there that might need it. But I personally want an extra glass panel because I actually want to make a big deal out of the back side of this case and have glass on it. It seems to be like my new fetish. It's having glass panels on the back of cases, which you'll see a little bit more moving forward. Now, the Q500. I know building it isn't going to be for everyone, but for those of you out there that want to get involved, I actually think this is a really beautiful way of doing it. If you think about it as well, you could actually do a lot of cable management on the fly as you're building it and make it incredibly tidy, or tidier than you may have done before. I really enjoyed this. It didn't take long, start to finish, including everything, a couple of hours. The delay for me, more than anything else, was going to find the hardware, because obviously it's slightly different for me where I normally would put a specific set of kit in it. And then I was like, wow, actually, I've got a few bits laying around that I could use that I've had in reviews before, and I'm actually going to be using this. So you have options for configuration on the inside. You've got options for how it's orientated on the outside. This will eventually turn to white fans, fingers crossed, unless it's trying to tell me to log in. But I've set up the software now so that the fans are all white, and that was meant to have what's happened. So I think it's trying to ask me to log in if I was to connect it up, which is a shame because I genuinely did want it to flick white while we were talking. Now I have some things that I'm going to be doing to this moving forward, and it's something that you could do as well. Really simple thing is you can take the panels off and you could just paint them at home. I'm actually going to take them to my friendly neighbourhood powder coater, John, and I'm going to get him to strip probably the peach panels, and then I'm going to powder coat them, which I won't spoil the colour for you, and I will show you that later on, but it's not going to be white. I've also got some funky stuff that I'm going to be doing to the air cooler twin tower, because I see this as a little evolutionary build for me, so that it got there in the end. I see it did do it. It's now all gone white. Simple things, although IQ hasn't caught up yet, but I'm sure it will get there eventually. So I'm actually quite excited about it. I think it's a quirky enthusiast case. It's the sort of thing you can tinker with at the weekends. There's I could do a completely separate video just on the options for stuff that you can do to tweak this. Very minor things that wouldn't cost a fortune, but just to make it your own. And actually, now I've said that out loud, make it your own or make your own. It's kind of a tagline for Coolermaster anyway. Now, like I said, I'm going to be using it. I really like it. I love the build idea of it. It is a lot sturdier than you think. It weighs quite a bit. They've used quite thick materials for it. And it does mean that you can get involved as well. That wasn't IQ. It does mean that you can get involved as well. So don't forget, black, white, plain colours. Macaron if you want the different coloured tops. If I was going to be buying this, me personally, I'd save the £10, just buy the white, because I know I'm going to be changing the colours of bits. But that in itself is quite a cool thing. In fact, that if you could buy the Macaron versions and have 3 different case colours on the outside. So some ideas for you. But I don't think it's a value for money case, because it's still sort of like £90 or £100, but do think it's an enthusiast case, and not enthusiast in the way of, oh, I'm just going to spend infinite amounts of money, but it is something for someone to have a case they can evolve with, strip it down, enjoy trying different configurations. It's quite a cheap way of buying a case and then, oh, I normally have my case on the right, but I'm actually going to try it on the left. Spend a few hours over the weekend tweaking it around, see if you like it. And I do think that it will, for those of you out there that want to get into modding or enjoy tweaking and playing around with things, maybe it's just cars that you normally do it with, like me. I think it's something that you'll enjoy letting it evolve and letting your creative juices flow. Anyway, I like it. I'd love to hear your thoughts underneath. Please like, subscribe and comment if you haven't already. And I did say that we were going to, with the regulars, we have this weird thing where if you get to the end, you get a food stuff. And what you do is I tell you what we're having. Today we're having cherry cheesecake. And I've literally just come up with that off the top of my head, having cherry cheesecake. And then people in the comments will put cherry cheesecake or add it into their reply. Something that I would like to close with is OC3D has a brand new website. This has been so long in the making. We had a lot of issues trying to get the old reviews and news articles out of the website cleanly, and it turned into an absolute nightmare. And my saviour Dan had a script, wrote a script to be able to scrape all of the content out of the old website. So that has been our delay, but we have a brand new website. Mobile works now, which I know isn't a big thing because it should have done 5 years ago plus, but it works now. And my stress levels have dropped massively. The website will still evolve. We do still have a lot planned, but we just got to the point where we're like, we need to get this live, and then we're going to hot edit stuff moving forward. So I'd love your feedback on that as well. So yes, brand new OC3D website. Please go and see what you think. Have a look, have a click around. And also, I do not publish Google banners at all. The banners that I have on the website at the moment are PC Specialist, Be Quiet, Deep Cool, Enemax, Coolermaster. They're all specifically related to the technology, the PC industry. So you're not going to see any random stuff that you might do on other sites. It's all very relative. And the point that I'm trying to make here is, please think about whitelisting us because it does help. And I'm hoping that you'll find that they are not too intrusive, and you might actually see some banners that you think are quite interesting. I never asked for Patreon or anything like that, but that whitelist makes a heck of a difference to a small business like OC3D, us, however you want to put it. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget Cherry's Cheesecake for those of you that got right the way to the end. I really like the Coolermaster Qube 500. I'd actually genuinely love to see what you guys are going to do with it at home as well. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out. Ding! Love you, sis.